critically acclaimed violinist and conductor Yuriy Bekker has been busy with several Charleston Symphony Orchestra events, including The Footsteps of a Giant, which is coming up this Saturday at the Gaillard Center. I talked one-on-one with Yuriy about that event and what else is going on in his career for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Yuriy Bekker, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. So good to see you, and thank you so much for having me back on your program.
Oh, you're very welcome. I know that obviously you are a critically acclaimed violinist and a conductor and have led the Charleston Symphony Orchestra as a concertmaster since 2007. You also named its principal pops concert conductor, that is, in 2016. Let me ask you a silly question, Yuriy. What are the strings on your violins these days?
What are the strings? Well, I use pie strings on my violin. They're called pie strings. They're really nice new strings that I'm exploring. Well, things are pretty busy for me, both with violin and conducting.
Right.
It's it's a difficult path that I chose, doing both. And I try to avoid going to conducting while I was in college, simply because it's so hard to do both things well. I was presented with opportunities while I was already in college to conduct, and I enjoyed conducting, and I studied it in college too. But finally, here in Charleston is where I'm pursuing more conducting, and especially in the last decade. And I have to tell you, I feel very fortunate and blessed that I can make music in so many different ways. I can play the violin.
Yes.
I love playing as part of the orchestra, in an orchestra, right? Number one thing is for me is the concertmaster position that I came for to Charleston. And then I love playing chamber music, and it's in the small trio quartets. And I absolutely love conducting. So I feel so fortunate. It's making music in so many different ways. It's wonderful.
Yes, indeed.
It is challenging. I have to keep after our phone call, I'm going to go to practicing and studying. It doesn't stop.
Yes, exactly right. Well, let me jump into it because obviously there's a big event coming up at the Charleston Symphony Orchestra here in a few. It's called Footsteps of a Giant. It's a musical event in which you will perform Violin Concerto No. 3 by Camille Saint-Saëns, obviously a 19th century French composer who made its mission to reestablish the prominence of French art and music. What will be your mission during that particular event?
Well, as you mentioned, I'll be featured in the Sensance Violin Concerto.
Yeah.
It's an amazing piece of music. It's written in 1880s or so, and it's very romantic. It's very lush harmonies. And Sensance was a prominent French composer, Romantic era. His music is virtuosic. And I think my mission is to deliver what the composer wanted to say through his writings. It's very sentimental. It's very It starts very agitated. This piece is yada 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 da da da, and then at the end, and it's in the key of B minor. The second movement is very much like a Sicilian sort of a French style dance. And then the third movement is very much almost like a tarantella, and it's glorious in B major. It has this very triumphant ending. I think my mission would be to play it as beautifully as I can for the music, and for a community, and my goal is to be a messenger of what the composer said to the music over 100 years ago.
Ooh. And from 100 years ago to right now, what will be your message, Yuriy?
My message is that this music is a universal language. And through music, we're able to say so many different things that words cannot. And so my message would be, I hope that it creates unity in our community, and it brings, and those people who are experiencing pain, maybe it's a moment for them to, my hope is that this music will take away that pain, and for a moment they'll forget about it, whether it's personal or medical or whatever it is. And that's the power of music.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that they talk about obviously reestablishing the prominence of French art and music. How do you reestablish French art and music prominence here in Charleston?
Well, Well, Charleston has some French. I think there's some French background. I think there are people who settled here were French Huguenots.
Yes.
In Charleston, we have a big French community. We have Alliance Française. We have many French restaurants, and I truly hope they survive during this pandemic because I have some favorites of mine there. And I think we just have to perform some French music more often for our community. And I have to tell you, I'm going to spill some. Can I spill some beans?
Sure.
So for one of my pops programming for next year, I'm planning to do a French night. And so the first half will be classical, some selections from opera, from French romantic opera, and then second half I'm going to have more of a jazz style, French jazz, more of a Django Reinhardt type of playing, and I have a wonderful band coming from Savannah who are gonna join us, and so and I'm hoping to partner with different constituencies in our town and to get behind this program. So. It's good. It's something about Charleston. Charleston loves art and arts.
Yes.
So I'm very confident that programming like this, like Sensance and French music is beloved. And there's so many great composers. We have Bizet.
Yes.
He wrote. Everyone knows he wrote Carmen, right? But the story takes place in Spain. I know I'm rambling here, Quintin, but sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Getting off topic. But a lot of composers wrote thought Spain was very exotic, and they wrote a lot of themes about Spain. Like I'll tell you who else. Ravel was very much Bolero. He wrote Bolero, right? He wrote Rhapsody Espagnole. Yes. Another one that I can think of is Edouard Lalo, French composer, wrote violin piece called Symphonie Espagnole. And in fact, another fun fact, that this concerto that I'm playing this weekend, Sensance, it was dedicated to a very well-known French master. He's Pablo de Sarasate. He was from Basque region, Spain. And he was this virtuoso violinist. He wrote many of his own works that are so difficult for violin. We're all very careful when we choose work by Sarasate because it's just so, it's acrobatics on the violin. Right. And... but Sarasate thought it was not difficult enough for him, so he kind of didn't pay attention to it as much. Only later, Belgian violinist Eugene Isaïe put this concerto on the map. So.
And how do you hope to put the French night on the map here in Charleston?
How do I put playing French music, and hopefully it will inspire people to go home and read about French culture and have a French wine.
Yes, they love that.
And chocolates.
Yes, oh yes, indeed. And I know, obviously, in the introduction to this particular event, it says this: I shall never write a symphony. You can't have an idea of what it's like always to hear such a giant marching behind you. The author of this quote was Johannes Brahms, and the giant he spoke of was none other than Ludwig van Beethoven. Let me ask you hypothetically, Yuri, what giant do you hear behind you when you're playing for the Charleston Symphony Orchestra?
Well, I have two comments. First of all, the giants, I can never follow giants as well. Look, I have so many people that I admire. First and foremost are my teachers, my violin teachers. And they truly inspired me, and they made me what I am today. That's my teacher Herbert Greenberg, who teaches in Baltimore, my teacher Nelly Shkolnikova, and many others. But not only that, there are so many great violinists of today and yesterday, and especially yesterday. We have to acknowledge violinist Jascha Heifetz and Emil Stein, and today we have Vengerov and James Annis and Hilary Hahn and Joshua Bell.
Yes.
I think it's important that we learn from them and we approach music. We approach music in such a way that it showcases. First of all, we not try to copy anybody. Right. And I want to show. I'm not trying to be somebody I am not. but I want to be myself, and I want to. For example, I'm playing this piece very differently than in any recordings that I heard of. I have a completely different approach, and I found myself through it. And of course, I could never follow these giants or Pablo de Sarasate or Sensance himself. I guess where I am and the way I see it, I'm a messenger, and I must deliver. I must deliver what these composers said. Speaking of the quote of the Brahms, I want to tell you an interesting fact. You see, Beethoven. This season we're celebrating Beethoven. We're performing so many pieces by Beethoven, and Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies. He did start 10th. He didn't finish. He died. Beethoven affected every single composer that followed him. There are some the composers that are a little more conservative. Like for example, Brahms. In a way, he didn't want to follow the footsteps of a giant. What it means is that Beethoven wrote nine symphonies and wrote them basically in his early, middle, and late period throughout his life. Beethoven wrote only 4 symphonies, and the first symphony he wrote not until he was 40-something years old. And the reason for that is because he thought Beethoven was so great, and how could he write a symphony? How can he follow Beethoven? So he felt that he needed more maturing to do, more learning, more experience before he committed to writing a symphony. His symphonies are very complex. Symphony number 4, which we're going to play in E minor, it's very musical, it's very emotional, it's very moving. It's very difficult, not so much as technically, yes, technically for sure difficult, but musically and intellectually to really play it right and really understand it. So, but Brahms was a genius, and I have to tell you something else. Interesting musical fact is that he didn't write the symphony until he's 40, but in his earlier works, his violin concertos, right? He wrote serenades, which are orchestral works. In the violin concerto, he has like a 3 to 5 minute introduction, symphonic introduction, where violinist just stands there and, when is it my time to play?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just, so he made solo works more symphonic, where other classical composers, like even Sensance, I wait for 2 seconds and I already play. In Brahms, you wait till the orchestra plays this whole introduction that's like 4 minutes long. So that's where he was putting his symphonic practice, and he's finding himself. And finally, we have these symphonies, and all 4 are amazing.
Wow!
I have to show you. I'm here in my music room.
Oh yeah.
Where is it? Here.
Oh yes, there it is. Yeah. Wow.
Anyway.
Wow. How do you find yourself these days?
Well, I find myself, I'm evolving as a musician, and I'm going to be 40 years old this year. I have a family. I have 2 children. They keep me busy.
Yes.
Especially now during COVID, it's very difficult. They do go to daycare, but sometimes now there are rules with daycare. If a kid has a runny nose, they cannot go. So a lot of times my wife and I, we find juggling, trying to figure out ways. How do we manage this? So I'm finding myself at a place where, first of all, I work really ahead of time. I'm balancing family life,
right?
Which is I'm very unusual. My work is very unusual. I'm blessed to have work as a violinist, and I'm grateful, and I'm thankful for that I have this opportunity. But at the same time, it's very not normal. My concerts are at night on Friday or Saturday night, and so or sometimes rehearsals are at night.
Right.
And now, when I prepare for concerto like Sensance, and it's a new piece, I have never played it before. I've started learning it a year ago. So my approach now is more responsible. A year out, I'm already starting to get my feet wet and learning to make sure I'm prepared. So it's a commitment. It's a tremendous commitment, and and also a balancing. Fortunately, my wife she's an amazing woman, and she totally understands because she herself has musical background, she understands what I'm going through preparing for these. These are high pressure situations, and so you have to be right in the right zone, to perform.
And I know despite Brahms' own musical gifts, he felt almost paralyzed by his desire to escape the ever-looming shadow of his German predecessor. Contrary to his previous statement, Brahms did write a symphony for, in fact. Let me ask you this too, Yuri. How do you step out on your own?
How do I step? Well, and this is part of this is what I'm doing with Sensance. I don't perform concertos often,
Right.
and so I take a challenge. I take this piece and it's 30 minutes long, and I memorized it, and I've researched what the music is about. I've read about Sensance. I think that I've grown. Yes, I never expected this. I thought if I get a job in an orchestra, my playing will go down the hill. The opposite. And but it takes. You have to. If I can take it. If we have a youngster listening to this, my advice is you have to go for it. You have to push yourself in a healthy way, of course. And you don't want to overdo it, but push yourself to the next level. So what I'm doing with Sensance is I learn a new piece. That's A. B. I want to push myself to be a better player, so I deliver it better. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, C, I make action to do that. How do I do that? I prepare ahead of time. I record my practicing. I recently acquired this device. It's a Zoom recorder. And what I do is I record my practices, or I use my phone and I play back. And another thing is what I do is I play for my friends and to get experience, especially because this is a new piece and I want it to feel secure and it's new, and I don't want to. My stage is not a place where I test it. I've already played this piece it has been ready for the last 2 weeks, and now I'm putting some frosting on it.
Wow. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses musically?
That's a great question. Well, okay. I think where I can honestly say is that the type of a player that I am is more lyrical player. So I deliver well pieces that are lyrical, that are slow. Where my so that's my strength as a player. I think my other strength is that I think my musicality. I believe in my musicality. And I'm very confident that what I'm going to say is what I mean. And I'm not afraid to say if somebody wants to challenge me on this and say they disagree, I will defend myself because I know what I'm saying and I do my homework with that, and I have a reason. Every phrase that I make, everything that I say from violin has a reason for it. It's not just done because I feel it. Okay? And so that's that. My weakness, I think, is sometimes a little velocity of playing. And so, for example, I'm not a type of player that will play very fast things. So I can play it. It's not that I cannot do it.
Right.
It's just I have to put in a lot of extra effort to really play well. So.
Yes, indeed. And going back to Brahms, Brahms may have worried that he was walking into the footsteps of a giant, but as it turned out, he was indeed blazing a trail of his own. What footsteps are you taking right now?
What footsteps? Would you clarify the question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Brahms may have worried that he was walking into the footsteps of a giant, but as it turned out, he was indeed blazing a trail of his own. What trail are you blazing for your own?
Well, I want to keep going. I want to keep growing, and I'm discovering myself. Like, for example, all these great violinists who play Sensance play these virtuosic passages so fast, and I don't play them as fast. I play them more clear and a little, and I sink through the line. That's my approach. So maybe that's where I'm putting my own path. That's who I am. It doesn't have to be but it can be very, very well spoken and well placed. right?
Yes, absolutely. And I know obviously you will perform, as I mentioned earlier, the Violin Concerto No. 3 by Camille, obviously the 19th century French composer who made its mission to reestablish the prominence of French art and music. One could say that the same succeeded do works like the Violin Concerto No. 3, now an audience favorite around the world, obviously. What are the audience favorites at the Charleston Symphony Orchestra right now?
Well, I think that this Charleston Symphony, the public really loves, our community really loves tonal romantic works, and I think that it's whenever we do, for example, it's in, if you look at our ticket sales in the past, whenever we do Beethoven symphony, that does really well. The audience really loves. I remember when I played Music of Korngold, my first concerto. That was back in 2008. That was my first concerto, and people loved it because it was very lush and lush harmonies, Hollywood style. And so I think that the community really relates, the Charleston community really relates to romantic music.
Sure.
Whether it's German romantic like Brahms or French romantic, it's going to do well. It's going to do really, in terms of how people love the piece. Now it's up to me to play well.
Yes.
So that's why I'm going to, do some practicing and work extra hard this week.
And what particular romance do you relate to musically?
Well, well, you know what? One thing I can tell you is that my life experiences have contributed to my delivery of music. For example, my love of my wife Jenny, my love of my kids.
Yes.
I had when I was 15 years old. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I experienced a terrible family tragedy. I lost my mother, and so these all experiences, these emotional experiences, they cook in your heart, in your head, and the romantic period was a time when reason gave way to passion.
Sure.
It's how you feel rather than what are the rules of music? What are the rules? What's your chord progression? If you Bach, Beethoven, right? Mozart. In romantic music, Sensance, Lalo.
Right.
They're all like, well, how do you feel? And express your feeling. Franz Liszt, another one. Just, you see? And so I think that having these life experiences, difficult experiences, such as losing my mother when I was really young, and we were my family were refugees. We came from former Soviet Union.
Right.
We didn't have very much. We had nothing, and so my mom just got a job at a Board of Education in New York City in teaching school, and then we lost her. It was such a blow for our family. So it was a very difficult period of life, and I think that reflecting to it now, more than 20 years, right. All of these experiences contribute to my musicality.
And what would you play right now to honor your mom?
Every time I play, I honor her because she really wanted me to become a musician. I mean, I wanted to, but many of our family, our extended family, is saying, "What are you doing? This is not a place for a child to become a musician." In the U.S., only doctors and lawyers are very successful. What are you doing? She said, "No, he loves music. I want him to pursue it." And so my whole career, every time I play, I think of her, and it's in her honor. I remember when I was a kid going to music school, and she would sit in the back after a finished concert, and no matter how I played, I can see her face was just like, I could just see a beam around her face. Yes. I couldn't see anything after I took a bow, and there is this recital hall full of students and parents and many people. I couldn't see anybody but her and her beam.
Wow. That's amazing. And let me talk to you once again about it. Footsteps of a Giant. It's a musical event in which obviously you'll perform the Violin Concerto No. 3. And if I want to attend that particular event, how should I go about it?
That's a great question. I think you should go, if you wanted to go and attend this event, you should listen to it. Just listen to it online. Go on YouTube or iTunes or any platform. Just listen to it. Going to classical music is not like going to a movie where you don't want to know what's going. You want to know what's happening. You want to listen to it, but it's an option. You don't have to do that. You can just go and experience and listen. Just listening and experiencing it would really be an experience in itself. And so I think you can. It's always helpful when you do a little research, when you read about it, and there's so much information online. All you have to do is put it in the search engine.
Yes.
And So my advice, yes, if you're up for it, do a little research. But if you're not up for it, my advice is go and enjoy and take a chance. Take a chance.
Yes.
Do something if you haven't never done this. Take a chance, because you may never know. It may change your life.
Yes.
And I think it will.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm so excited about this event. And obviously, you can go to charlestonsymphony.org for more information about the footsteps of a giant. But Yuriy Bekker, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, I'm so honored to be on your close-ups. Thank you again for having me. And it's always good to see you. And thank you for everything you do for our community.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks be to God, too. Yes, indeed.
Indeed, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Great, terrific.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.